a game for the ages as long as you didn't care about defense or tackling.
Hello and welcome to All Four Quarters, your one-stop shop for news, views and overreactions to all things NFL. Week 1 is in the books, football's back. It's starting to feel a lot like Christmas. Okay. Hey, we got Connor here and we got Sean.
Hello.
How are we getting on, Sean? How's all down in Cork?
Yeah, not too bad. The weather is drawing in and then the nights are drawing in and autumn is upon us. Yeah, I've been working a bit on trying to get the advertisement thing for my novel working out the Amazon ads and all their various metrics. It's there's a lot of data. Trying to work through it at the moment. It's a process. Let's just put it that way. It's a process. I just got to go through it step by step.
Very exciting. I'm sure there's a lot of new bits in it to learn and work your way through. Yeah, no, nothing too wild or crazy here now. Quiet enough. Yeah, like had football and had a D&D game and things like that. And yeah, just kind of nice easing into September.
First red zone of the year was nice, except for the ads, which actually you don't get on the zone, which I thought was a nice touch. They just don't bother to show the ads if you're watching it on the zone.
Interesting. That is good.
Because obviously Europeans paying for it is more valuable than make the Americans watch the ads, don't make us watch the ads.
Also, I suppose in terms of targeting ads, like I'm sure a lot of them are just targeted at Americans on the main cast.
They would have to be, yeah.
So it'll only take them a while and they'll figure out regionalization and then it'll be all back again. I did see a lot of people complaining about the Channel 5 coverage over in the UK.
Right.
I don't know if you saw any of it, but basically they kind of built out a show around it and a lot of people were saying it was quite farcical and not very good. They had was it people either commenting or doing trivia while on a booking Bronco in the studio while the game was on. Like it very much sounds like they haven't a fucking clue of what they're trying to do with the broadcast. But
I remember back in the day when they had like Channel 4 or BBC or whatever at the Superbowl, it would be like every time they'd be like, here's a beginner's guide to the sport because we can't trust that you actually understand anything. And especially with BBC because they couldn't cut to ads.
Yeah,
it was just like every 20 seconds they had to go back to the studio for comment on the latest thing that happened.
And I remember because they didn't really have anyone with expertise. They were just bringing in every rugby league player they could find and stuff. And every question was, well, what position would you play? And then most of them would just go, well, it's a very different sport. I don't think I have one. It's natural fit. And then a few other ones would be like, I don't know, I'll be the quarterback. Why not? Like, that's kind of the extent of the analysis. But yeah, well, we'll see. Yeah, I'm fairly decent. Like, I had no problems with my coverage on this end. I miss the 7 hours of commercial-free football, but I suppose they didn't put a ton in it. At least it wasn't. I mean,
yeah. To be fair, they are only like 15 seconds worth of ads. Like, it's not like it's like a 3-minute ad break or anything.
Yeah. Oh, well, I suppose we'll move in. We've got lots to get through after week 1. It was kind of a busy week, as you'd imagine. We got a short little controversy corner. What are they doing? Probably felonies. Not at first. Bill Belichick has banned scouts from New England from coming on campus to view his players and look at them. His response to why this is happening is he says, well, it's clear I'm not welcome at their facility, so they're not welcome at ours. It's pretty simple. Nice of Bill. Nice of Bill to be keeping it cordial. I'm sure this won't irritate his players at all that a set of scouts aren't being allowed to come in and evaluate them for possible
it's not exactly going all that well so far anyway in terms of their performances. And I mean the whole Bill and the Patriots thing and the collapse of the relationship with Robert Kraft and stuff. I mean, it's put a bit of a sour taste in the mouth of Pats fans who watched the epic dynasty last for 20 years. And I mean, I'll always be a Belichick guy. I always think I refuse to countenance anyone who says that it was all Brady and that he was riding on Brady's coattails. I think the guy is one of the best head coaches ever. I think the game maybe slightly passed him on a bit, and maybe he's getting a little bit older and crotchetier than he used to be. I mean, it can't be nice that the place where you had all your success suddenly wants nothing to do with you. Although, I mean, I have heard quotes. I think Mike Vrabel said that Belichick is welcome at Gillette Stadium. anytime he wants to come. But it is, yeah, I think it's just things aren't going well at UNC. Belichick feels like he's not being appreciated, and this is just his stupid way of acting out.
Yeah.
The cost is if the players start to be pissed off at him, if he loses the dressing room, as it were, then any hope of turning that thing around is a thing. But it's sad. It's sad. As a Pats fan, it is a sad thing to see, I would say, and it's not going to. I don't think everybody involved is too old to mend fences at this point, so I don't think we're going to see any massive turnaround in people's relationships going forward.
No, and Spitgate update. We will be talking about this game, so we won't go into depth. But basically, Jalen Carter was ejected before the first play from scrimmage of the game because he spat on Dak Prescott. There are contentions that Dak spat in his general vicinity or egged him on in some way. But yeah, look, whatever happened, happened. The NFL are currently convening to discuss whether or not they want to do anything about Carter spitting on him. We said at worst, Dak didn't spit, and this is completely just stupid. If it was and he spat in the ground or goaded them somehow, it's kind of I believe the term that a Phillies fan of ours said was it was an idiot test and he failed by taking the bait.
Absolutely.
But what I did find interesting about this, just to tie it in here, was this was the fastest ejection in an NFL game since 2005, because in 2005 Jeremiah Trotter and Kevin Mathis were ejected for fighting 40 minutes before the game started. It was an Eagles at Falcons game in Week 1, and they were fighting during the warm-ups, and they got ejected pre-game. But yeah, I just thought that was a fun piece of trivia.
That's a record that will not be broken anytime soon.
No. Very good. Well, we'll move into some transactions. So it's a time of year where, markets have settled down. People kind of know what they have in the coffers, and they decide how they want to balance, their cap moving forward. So we had a bunch of extensions. I'll just run through them and let me know if there's any ones you want to jump into. 49ers right tackle Colton McKivitz signs a $45 million 3-year extension. Decent price for a right tackle. He's fine. Jameson Williams, 3-year, $83 million contract extension with Detroit. They're hoping to feature him more and more. He came on very well last year. Safety Armani Hooker has signed a 3-year, $48.6 million contract extension with the Tennessee Titans. Browns running back Quishon Judkins has signed his rookie deal. If you remember, this is their earlier round pick running back who was not signed due to sexual assault allegations. They are not pressing charges. The prosecutor isn't, but the NFL are investigating it for their own conduct policy. Dan Whelan, punter, has signed a 2-year, $6.2 million contract extension with Green Bay, so we'll continue to see a bit of Ireland on the field. And Nick Benito, linebacker for Denver, has signed a 4-year, $106 million contract extension, and we saw in the game this weekend him proving to be worth the money they spent on him. So anything in these jump out at you, or are these all just kind of good players getting locked up?
I mean, the Jameson Williams thing is interesting in the sense they are giving him it's a decent amount of money. They are kind of signaling that they value him a lot, and we'll be talking obviously about what the Lions' offense and the problems they may be facing going forward. But locking down talent, I think, is a big part of what the Lions need to do going forward. So I think that's a good move. I mean, the Quishon Judkins thing, I mean, it's standard Browns, right? I mean, it's like almost every single player at that facility has some sort of controversy behind him at some point. So, yeah, that's just asking for trouble if there is some sort of suspension or something down the line as tends to come. And on the Dan Wheeler thing, apparently the bigger thing here is apparently it's quite good money. He's getting good punter money. Like it's not like he's like
$3 million a year is good for a punter. Like
it's definitely that they value him, which is a very nice thing to see, because obviously with all the other Irish players, the ones who came up from the GAA, all basically falling short as kickers. I mean, Dan Whelan is flying the flag alone at this point, and for him to be a very valuable part of what could be a serious team, judging by week 1. We might see him kicking in the Superbowl if things fall their way. So yeah, that'd be interesting development there.
Yeah, we had a couple of trades and signings as well. Kendrick Bourne is returning to the 49ers, a 1-year deal worth up to $5 million. They are decimated with injuries at the wide receiver position, and actually we'll talk about them in the injury section. Tank Bigsby has been traded to the Eagles for a 5th and 6th round pick. Their plan to use him as kind of a return specialist for the most part, and then add a little bit more depth to that running back room. and Jabril Peppers, who was kind of a surprise cut for the Patriots there at roster cutdown, is signing with the Steelers. We don't have details on the contract yet. So I was a bit surprised to see the Eagles give a fifth and sixth round pick for Tank Bigsby. Um, Even if it is just that they kind of want a return specialist, that seems a touch pricey, I would have thought.
Yeah, it's a strange one because if you want to look at any team which has a pretty locked and stocked running back room, it is the Eagles. I mean, obviously they have Saquon, but they also have AJ Dillon, albeit with injury concerns, and Shipley, albeit also with injury concerns. So Bigsby would be coming into a situation where he's not even. I mean, you think he'd be somewhere maybe in contention for an RB2 in a lot of places. In the Eagles, he's potentially an RB4, and so they're looking at him as a kick returner. I think is the way they're talking about it. But he doesn't actually have a tremendous amount of stats because he hasn't actually return that many kicks. So they're basing an awful lot on potential. So is it a necessity for the Eagles at this stage? I would question that a lot. I don't think that their offense is where they might run into problems down the stretch. So using up valuable, draft real estate, well, somewhat valuable draft real estate is questionable. So I don't understand from Bigsby's point of view as to why he'd want to move to a place where he's going to get less playing time, albeit he might have a better chance of the Super Bowl ring. And the Eagles, I don't necessarily know why this is a place that they're focusing on. Unless it's just this thing where they think they're more likely to be kick returns, because obviously the NFL has designed the kicks to be more returnable this year, and the Eagles are trying to go, we need someone who we can be a specialist in this. And
we are seeing an increase in them, and we are seeing them being able to be taken out a bit further as well. So that could be it. Although it does seem pricey. Just as everyone always loves to go, how he did it again. This one I'm not so sure about, and I'm sure by the end of the season we'll all be like, oh God, that was so smart. Why the fuck didn't anyone else do something like that? But right, we'll have a look at some of the injuries. There's a few to go through. So I think probably larger ones to start. Texans tight end Kate Stover has fractured his foot and he's gone for the season now. George Kittle injured his hamstring. He left the game in the second quarter and he's expected to be 3 to 5 weeks on the recovery. More 49ers problems with their quarterback. Purdy has a shoulder and a toe injury and is now uncertain for week 2. Mac Jones is the backup there if he's not ready to go, which is not great. Jets right guard Elijah Vera Tucker will miss the entirety of the season due to a torn tricep that they've confirmed now will require surgery, so he's gone. And Saints safety Julian Blackman is reportedly suffered a torn labrum, which will end his season. So that's a lot of tough big injuries with kind of potentially significant time off it. That's not the only 49ers as well. Juwan Jennings is day to day with a shoulder injury, but they sound more positive on him. We have a few smaller injuries as well. So Falcons wide receiver Drake London left the game with a shoulder sprain. He's day to day but expected to play. Houston Texans center Jake Andrews was carted off the field and didn't return in the game against the Rams. He has a high ankle injury and is going to be gone for multiple weeks. Tight end Brock Bowers left with a knee injury during the game against the Patriots, but has told the reporters he's fine and they don't have any injury designation on him at the moment. The Giants linebacker Micah McFadden had an X-ray on his leg after being carted off the field, so they're just going to be taking it careful with him. And Xavier Worthy dislocated his shoulder in the game. They're hoping to have him return, possibly in a brace, but he's listed in the day-to-day category, which historically has not been the quickest for the Chiefs. The running joke is that Eric Berry is still day-to-day for the Chiefs. So he was day-to-day for a year and a half. But yeah, we'll see. It all depends on the severity of the injury. We will be talking about that game in a bit. And on slightly more positive injury news, Chris Godwin, who was inactive for the season opener with an ankle injury, is expected to return to practice as soon as this week. So we might be seeing Godwin getting back on the field soon. Any of these jump out at you here?
Well, I mean, obviously the big one in terms of teams is the 49ers once again falling into in an injury black hole. Kittle is a huge one. He's such a big part of that offense. He's the guy who scored their opening touchdown on Sunday. He really ties it together in terms of giving Purdy options. So to lose him for a quarter of the season is quite a big blow. Obviously, Brock Purdy himself being out and being uncertain for week 2. I mean, Mac Jones is not, as you know, people talk about Brock Purdy's limitations. Trust me, you will appreciate Brock Purdy a lot more if you have to sit and watch Mac Jones for a number of weeks. And then obviously Juwan Jennings as well being out. It's, as we've said, the Niners will be competitive as long as they can keep enough skilled players on the field that they can actually, field a proper offense. And once again, it looks like that's going to be the problem for them.
Yeah,
a big one there.
I would also say for the Jets, Elijah Vera-Tucker, the right guard, was sort of a key part of that line. Now, we'll talk about them in the game previews. They performed well anyway, but I think that would have helped them get to the next level, particularly with kind of the dual threat nature of Justin Fields, and that they would kind of like a movable guard like that. But and we'll see. And then obviously we'll talk about the Chiefs one later on as well, with Xavier Worthy with Rashee Rice out for 6 weeks with his suspension. This was the plan to be the WR1, and you can see from the game they played that that game plan kind of went out the window whenever it's Hollywood Brown getting 10 targets, instead. The depth of target, I would say, changes significantly between the two. Two other small bits of news. Amari Cooper is retired, so you may recall he signed with the Las Vegas Raiders there about 3 weeks ago. Decided after about a week or two of that actually he doesn't really have it in the tank anymore, doesn't want to go. So he kind of started out with the Dallas Cowboys, moved over to Cleveland for a few years. Last year, if you recall, he was traded to Buffalo. So 7 seasons in the league, 5 of the 7 seasons he was over 1,000 yards, 5-time Pro Bowler. Was always slated to be this kind of top WR1 type level guy, and I don't think ever really reached that heights. But five seasons over 1,000 yards and 5-time Pro Bowler is a pretty decent resume for someone who realistically in 5 years I don't think anyone's going to remember his name a huge amount.
Yeah, no, I mean he obviously was Cleveland's WR1 for a period as well. So it is that kind of thing where you will notice that his absence more than anything, but whether he's a Hall of Fame or anything like that, I mean, very unlikely. But there are teams that could use someone like him, is what I would. Yeah. There are teams that could use someone like him, is what I would say. But obviously, I mean, he's only 31 is the other thing. I mean,
he's young.
It's not. I mean, they're getting younger and younger with retirements in the NFL these days. It's definitely pushing it. I mean, you do 10 years, I guess, in the NFL, and these days, and you're pretty much done. Even in a position like wide receiver, which you don't get that many hits comparatively to say a running back or a lineman or whatever. So it's definitely a trend that we're noticing that players are retiring earlier, all except Tom Brady, of course, who makes up for the average, bumping up that number. But no, I mean, he was a good player in his day, but nothing overly special, I would say.
Yeah, it's mad to think that he was traded. Like the Bills sent a 3rd round pick and a 7th round pick for him last year. Like he was still at that kind of level that they thought that would be the change. Now he didn't really have the impact last year at all. I think he had like 450 yards or something like that total on the season. But just interesting to see the kind of rapid kind of decline from. Like he was traded to Cleveland, then traded to Buffalo. Like both teams gave up resources to get him, and then he's just kind of drifted off. But just an interesting way for it to end. Maybe we might see him come back. It might be that he got into Vegas and just didn't like Pete Carroll and decided he'd give it a rest for a year. And a bit of Irish specific news: the Kansas City Chiefs have come out and stated their ambition to play in Ireland in 2026. A team executive told the Irish Independent that they hope to be chosen to play in Ireland next season. They have kind of executive vice presidents and things like that involved in the statement. There's no confirmation that there will be an additional game. Frankly, from a strategy perspective, I think we were not expecting to see another Irish game because I think the overlap with the UK market means they'd probably rather grow it in Italy or somewhere like that, but it would be very cool if we could see it. And it's interesting to see them come out in the media and say we want to come over and we're pushing for it. So fingers crossed we might see another game next year. Not that we got tickets to this one, but
I mean, and if the Chiefs come, I mean, whatever about the Steelers.
If the Chiefs are coming, I'll buy the fancy tickets that you can get your hands on.
You're getting the box. You're getting the full box. No, I mean, it is interesting because American executives like this, they are very strategic about this kind of stuff. And if a guy is openly coming out and kind of basically talking to the local media and trying to play it up. They're definitely pushing for it. Whether the NFL will want another game, as you say so quickly, whether the Steelers will want someone moving in and essentially it was their turf, because they put an awful lot of money and effort into establishing Ireland as the Steelers' place. And now for another team, a better team and a more exciting team to come along and talk about how they want to play here is interesting. So, I mean, it would be great to see, obviously, that for yourself personally as a Chief fan, I'm sure you'd be really excited about that.
Oh, yeah.
And another game, for every game they get in Croke Park, obviously the lineup of people to watch it gets less and less. Is the theory that the novelty wears off. We might actually get to see a game in Croker if they keep going for 5 or 6 seasons. But no, definitely a good development for Ireland, and it's a good sign that people are actively trying to seek out to play here, versus complaining that they have to play here, which happens in a couple of other places.
Well, that nice positive note for the possibility of more football in Ireland. Let's talk about the football from last week. So first up, Sean, do you want to take the first one here? Dallas at Philadelphia, 20-24, kind of a bit of a surprise on how close it was and how exciting this game got.
Yeah, I mean, much closer as a game than I think anybody really expected, especially given the Cowboys were coming in off the big news of losing Micah Parsons. And I mean, certainly offensively, they started off quite well, Dallas. I think they scored on the first 3 or 4 possessions. Jack particularly quite sharp. He ended up, I think, with 188 yards. CeeDee Lamb was catching balls in the first half, at the very least, and things were ticking over nicely. They were competitive against the Eagles, which I think is a very big thing. But then, I mean, the Eagles, they end up winning 24-20. Largely, that is just a lot of first half scoring. Jalen Hurts, 2 touchdowns on the ground were the big ones. He also had 152 yards passing and 62 rushing. But his ground game was really where things were quite exciting. He definitely shows that there were times in like the second quarter where it's like thinking about, damn, Hurts is going to win the MVP if he keeps playing like this. They went a bit quieter in the second half. There was a weather delay, 65-minute lightning delay. Which basically, I don't think any team scored after that. There were a lot of people online very pissed off because you got the 44 points in the first half, and everyone was like, "Oh, they're going to hit the over for sure," and then they just didn't score again. So the conspiracy theorists were out in real measure. Obviously, Philadelphia. The big question is their defensive weakness. I think the defense does look a little bit weaker than it did last year. They have lost that thing. It doesn't help when Jalen Carter gets ejected 6 seconds into the game for just being an utter idiot. Regardless of what happens to you, it's the first game of the year. You're playing your big divisional rivals. You're on national TV. Don't spit. Just don't retaliate against the guy. Take your best defensive player out of the game. So the Philly D was a little bit shaky at first. They got into it in the second half. I thought the second half they got a lot of more aggression after a slow start to kind of get them competitive, and they shut down the Cowboys. In the second half, I felt the Eagles, although they weren't scoring, their offense was looking a little bit better. The Cowboys' offense just kind of got shut down an awful lot in that sense. But the big one, of course, is CeeDee Lamb drops 2 big second half passes. One of them would have been for a very big first down, which would have kind of kept the situation alive. So that's a bit of a downer for the Cowboys. I think Cowboys fans come out of this maybe a little bit more optimistic about where the team is. Only losing by 4 points to the champs. In a situation where you thought the season was going to be dire means that they probably are still playoff competitive to keep that level. For the Eagles, yeah, I've been very up on the Eagles. I will say that they're not as invincible as maybe I might have thought they would be, especially on the defensive side. It's going to be interesting to see, for example, next week when they face the Chiefs, how good that defense holds up against a tighter challenge than that.
Yeah, no, it was a good game. Now I must say, I think Dallas are going to be kicking themselves after this one because it was theirs for the taking. Like I said, it's just those drops from Lamb at the tail end that kind of killed them, because they were, even though the Philly defense have been better in that second half, they were surging, and like Dallas felt like they had another score in them, and then just the wind came out of the sails a little bit. But yeah, I think Dallas will take it as a positive. Obviously, look, they were on the road as well, and that environment, those fans hoisting the trophy and putting up the banner and everything, like that's a tough environment to be going into, and they benefit from obviously Carter not being there and so on, and maybe that would have been a bigger difference maker for them. But like it was good, and their defense weren't too shabby really. Now, is this what the Philly offense is going to look like going forward? I don't think so, because there's very little passing. Like, you're going to need to take out a library subscription for AJ Brown if you have him that quiet, because he's going to be sitting on the sidelines and will have torn through all the books. But we'll be talking about the Chiefs in a little bit, but like particularly when you look at where the Chiefs' defense's strengths lie, I would expect next week you will be seeing a lot of passing and you'll see a very different version of this Philadelphia offense. And I'm not sure, it's probably going to sit somewhere between the two, how it'll look. But yeah, on the strength of this first game, they don't look like the world beaters they were at the tail end of last season. But equally, it's an early start, divisional rival. They were down their superstar rookie, and they still won. Albeit, I think, self-inflicted wounds by Dallas rather than Philadelphia necessarily taking over.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously the Eagles. I mean, it was a kind of a run heavy thing. I definitely think, and it's a situation where if you have AJ Brown and you have Devonta Smith and you're combined 24 yards between them, I mean, that's just when Jahan Dotson is your go-to guy for the kind of the long balls and stuff. It's probably not how they drew it up. Let's put it that
Maybe
way.
that's where they need Tank Bigsby. They're like, Jesus, we're going to be running the ball 60 times a game. We're going to need some more legs in this room. Fair enough. But a good strong Thursday night opener for the season. Next up, we'll have a look at the Jets at the Steelers, 34-32. Boy, I think we were pretty wrong on how we were expecting this one to go. This was an exciting ass game. Rodgers in the media afterwards saying he's really happy to be a part of beating anyone who's attached to that Jets organization, which is the opposite of what he was saying before the game. So I think he was just trying to protect himself if they didn't win. But
It was a very clever baiting. They baited him. He was like, "Are you particularly happy to have gotten a win over Aaron Glenn?" And he goes, "I'm just happy to have beaten them all." And he tried to obviously sell it as, "Oh, I'm just a guy out trying to win the game," but the way his tone just kind of betrayed him in that moment, definitely.
oh yeah, yeah. But no, he had a hell of a game here. 244 yards and 4 touchdowns. Gets his revenge on Pittsburgh. It was it was lucky at times. I would very much say that. Metcalf had a catch that bounced off him, bounced off another player, and bounced back into him for the catch. They won at the tail end with a massive, I think it was a career long for no, franchise record for Chris Boswell, that 60-yard field goal, and he'd made a 56-yard earlier, so he's an absolute. Well, I suppose. Yeah, absolute killer. Tomlin came out in the media afterwards and called him a serial killer when referring to his composure in these spots, which is great. But like, even at that, like, this was a close back and forth game, and if I'm remembering correctly, that one came off the fumble, didn't it? The
No, they got a touchdown off the
oh,
kickoff fumble.
sorry, yeah, yeah.
The kind of go ahead touchdown. Yeah.
Yeah, that was it. Xavier Gibson had the kickoff fumble, and that's what set up the touchdown before and to get them there. So they were trailing a little bit. And for the other side of the ball, the Jets, they actually looked really fun and exciting as well. Fields seems to be playing in great form at the moment. 218 yards, a touchdown passing, and then 2 touchdowns on the ground as well. He looked composed. He had accuracy and good zip on his passes. Like, the knock on him had always been that, like, he'll just run around and then he'll do it with his legs, and you can't trust him with the passing. But his passing was very strong in this game, so I think the Jets are going to be very happy with seeing that as well. Um, it was kind of fun to see him back playing with Garrett Wilson. I believe they played together in their college days. They had a 33-yard touchdown, but like, you could see the chemistry he had immediately with him versus, like, if you remember Rodgers struggling with him week 11, week 12 last year. This is week 1, and he had 7 passes for 95 yards to Garrett Wilson. So they've definitely got themselves in the right spot there. Their run game was really, really good in this one. Their offensive line, even with the missing Vera Tucker, was excellent. They had 182 rushing yards on the ground, and the rookie Armin Mabu kind of performed very well. I don't think he gave up a pressure in the game either. But then you have the special teams mistakes where they mess up the kickoff. You just have a few moments where they're maybe a little bit tight, a little bit kind of worried, and they just make a few little small mistakes here and there. It's not perfect, right? It's not a finished product with the Jets, but you can see straight out of the gate, because this is a Steelers defense that is aging, but has a lot of quality players on it, a particularly good line. This is a performance that should get Jets fans very, very excited. I don't think any of us were expecting to come into week one and see them put up 32 points against the Steelers. I don't think any of us thought they were going to be coming into this game and necessarily knocking on the door, bar a few little special teams gaps here and there. And if I'm a Jets fan, I'm excited to go out and watch them now, versus where I have been for the last couple of years. I'd say maybe all the way back to, good God, is it all the way back to Sanchez the last time that they were properly up and competing for the playoffs? I think Sanchez their last playoff quarterback, right? Good God.
Certainly the last one to have won a game. I don't know, they might have snuck in a few times, but yeah.
From the Steelers side, look, you're very happy with week one of this Aaron Rodgers experience. It seems to be working. He was a little bit hit and miss on a few passes here and there, but overall it worked. He kept it clean. Took a few sacks that maybe 2 years, 3 years ago he wouldn't have taken. But yeah, like from a Steelers perspective, your offense is looking better. Your defense is looking a little bit slower though. So maybe the calling card of what this team was for the last couple of years is not necessarily as true this season.
Yeah, I mean, I think both teams will come away from this game somewhat happy, if not from the Jets side with the result, but at least where their team is. Because I think obviously there were concerns with the Steelers were, is this Rodgers thing going to work? And, they've added Metcalf, and there is a lot of talent. And I think one thing we maybe underappreciated when we were looking at the Steelers in preseason is when you put this much raw talent onto the field, they're going to find a way, and Rodgers really did get into his comfort zone. I thought I think he had 2 touchdowns in a space of like a minute at one point, which really kind of turned the game around. And Metcalf had a couple of big moments as well. And you see he was much more comfortable with the scheme and the players he was throwing to, and you felt he could probably rely. He felt he could rely on his receivers a lot more than he ever felt he could rely on the Jets receivers. So the Steelers do look in a decent spot. I would say maybe the defense probably isn't going to be championship caliber, but they have otherwise their O-line, I think. They were, as you said, a little bit weak, and they didn't have a great rushing game. I think something like 53 yards rushing.
Yeah, they need to put the rookie in there a little bit more. Like they were just going, let's just keep going with Warren, and like he was at 3 yards a carry, and that was only because he got 1 or 2 long ones later on. Like he's running through treacle, just put the young kid in.
Yeah, no, I mean definitely the Steelers. The passing game is weirdly now just become their strength from the look of week one, which is opposite of where they've been for the past 4 or 5 years. But for me, the Jets are really, I mean, until their like inherent jetsiness took over, there was a point in like the fourth quarter where they were like 10, 11 points up, and 90% of teams in that spot would have cruised to a victory. But the jetsiness just kind of overwhelmed them. And, I thought Fields looked really good early on. I thought he looked confident. It's difficult to think of an individual game he's played better that I've seen him. And it certainly looks like the scheme works quite well. His connection with Wilson, albeit not on the very, very final pass, when Jalen Ramsey knocks it out of his hands, was quite good. I think they have an idea of what they're doing offensively that looks a lot more coherent than what they were doing under Rodgers. There were sparks, but at least something to work on. On the defensive side, I mean, there were bits of it that were quite good. I thought Sauce Gardner was used quite well. They kind of, instead of trying to do anything fancy, they're like, Sauce Gardner, you are our best defender. Your job is to stop their best receiver, DK Metcalf, from doing things. And I think while he was with Metcalf, I think Metcalf got 2 catches for like 18 yards from like something like 30 plus snaps. So he was having a good day, and definitely showed that the secondary, they do have, we talked about this young core of talent they have on the defensive side. It's still very much there to be seen. So there's definitely green shoots in terms of where the Jets are. You got to be happy with this team as it comes together. The fact that their jetsiness meant that they lost this game in a situation like this is my point is it's very unlikely that a team is going to lose in a position where they're 11 points up kind of midway through the fourth quarter through a bunch of mistakes, right? That there's a kickoff fumble return, there's a really, really fluky pass catch on a crucial third down play. The opposition kicker nails a 60-yard field goal. Like, you did almost everything you could to win this game. You scored 32 points against a team that's supposed to have a good defense. The Jets did everything that they ought to have done to win this game. They just were stopped by the fact, because of the Jets, the universe hates them. But definitely, if I'm a Jets fan, I'm in a happy place where we are despite the defeat. And for the Steelers, probably not championship caliber, but they might be competitive divisionally. They might have a shot at taking their division, or at least a good wild card spot. And on their day, as we see, Rodgers is still the man. Even if he's aging and not quite got 100% there, but certainly better than we saw from almost the entirety of his Jets reign from Rodgers in that one game. So the Steelers should be happy, Jets should be happy. Two good seasons, I think, coming in for these teams.
Yeah, next up, Sean, Ravens at Bills. Sunday Night Football, 40-41, absolute
game
brilliance.
For the ages. A game for the ages. As long as you didn't care about defense or tackling, it was definitely a game for the ages. So the big one, obviously, the Bills down 15 points, 40-25, with 4 minutes to go. They had a 0.9% chance of victory, and they won. They won through scoring, and this is the interesting thing. They won through scoring 16 points, which you'd think, they scored 2 touchdowns with 2 extra points. With two-point conversions. No. They missed one of the points conversions. They needed a field goal on top of that at the end to get their victory. So it's just one of those games where sense falls out the window and it's just chaos. It is endless chaos. Josh Allen, of course, master of chaos. He was just Josh Allen, He played the hero, dragged his team out of a spot, just refused to not win this game. 394 yards, 2 touchdowns passing, 2 touchdowns running. You had a lot of nice connections with Keon Coleman, who had 112 yards and a touchdown. James Cook was obviously a very big part of their offense as well. Defensive weaknesses from the Bills are definitely there, and certainly something to be concerned about going forward. But offensively, they are definitely where they were at the back end of last year. Josh Allen seems ready to take his MVP form into another season. And so definitely, I mean, I don't know. I'll have to talk to the Bills fans I know about whether they're happy with this win. They're just a little bit shocked that they won. They're relieved that they won, because this must feel like elation for victory. But at the same time, you're like, this is just not sustainable. You cannot do this for 17 weeks of a season and expect to win all that many games. For the Ravens, I mean, the first 3 quarters or so was just perfect John Harbaugh football. They were crushing it. Derrick Henry looked utterly unstoppable. I'm not even sure he was tackled properly until the fourth quarter. He had 169 yards, rushing 2 touchdowns. He kind of screwed it up by making a crucial fumble late in the game that kind of cost them it. But for those 3 quarters, he was Derrick Henry all over. Zay Flowers, who I flagged to have a big season, and I put my money where my mouth is, and I took him in fantasy. Had a really big game, 143 yards and a touchdown. He's definitely turning into the player that he looked like he could be last year. Lamar had 3 very good quarters, 209 yards, 2 touchdown passes, 70 on the ground with the touchdown. He was absolutely spectacular all over the place, and then he just stopped. In the fourth quarter, they just stopped playing. And this is the worry with Lamar, because this is a narrative that is going to sustain itself. It's always like, Lamar is flashy, Lamar is brilliant, he does exciting things, but when the crunch comes, like it's a playoff game, or in a situation like this, you're in a big game and you have to close it out. Do you trust him? And games like this kind of makes you suggest that you can't trust this guy to win you games. And I think until you go all the way with him and he wins you Super Bowl, I think those questions will hang over him. On the defensive side, utter garbage defenses, both of the league, except for maybe Ed Oliver making one very nice move. It definitely seemed like every single time someone broke the first tackle in this game, they were going to score a touchdown. Like it was like if you got past the first line of defense, you were running it in, and it's just not a good situation for either defense. We knew the Bills with their injuries and their changes that they would be weak, but we thought the Ravens defense would be a good bit better than this. So that would also be worrying from a championships point of view. And also, the Ravens do have a history of choking under John Harbaugh in recent years. So this is just another example of that. So coming away, I don't know what to think about this game from either team's perspective. The Bills, Josh Allen, as long as he's in this form, they will win an awful, awful, awful lot of games. But it will always be a heart attack central for any fan trying to watch it. And the defense has got to be a worry. For the Ravens, the talent is there, and when it's clicking, they're really good. But they do have this tendency to blow up in games like this and blow leads like this. And you don't win championships if you're blowing 16-point leads in the last 4 minutes. So yeah, questions for sure there.
Oh yeah, like look, these are two of the top contenders in the AFC. They both playing massively hard against each other because they've all been in the spot where like this is the game that might decide seeding, particularly in a year where we'll talk about the Chiefs and saying that they aren't looking quite as strong, and these guys might have a real chance to kind of pull away and get home field advantage and get an extra week's rest and so on. I think it's you're right. It's an unsustainable way to play a season, to put it mildly. But I also think that like this isn't how they're going to have to play their season. This is how they're going to have to play their playoff games. And both of them were showing that they are kind of ready for that from an offensive perspective. At least I'm with you that the defenses just weren't quite up to snuff. And particularly, I was expecting that of the Bills defense. I was expecting the Ravens defense to be a bit stronger than this. But yeah, they just kind of collapsed, particularly in the back end of the game. Now that could be, it's week one, and they always say particularly week one is a bit more trying for these guys on the body because they haven't done, a full game for quite some time at this stage, and you can only replicate so much in practice and so on. But yeah, what you say about the Ravens collapse is interesting because I was thinking a similar thing, Sean.
I have in my notes actually a stat from this that is mind blowing. Under John Harbaugh, the Baltimore Ravens have blown 17 leads of double digits in second half. So they've had a double digit lead in the second half 17 times and lost.
Yeah, because this is the thing. I was going to say I think this is not a Lamar Jackson problem. I think this might be a Harbaugh problem. I think this might be on the coaches. And there's a particularly good example of this in this game, where it was getting towards the end of the game. They just basically needed to not let the Buffalo Bills have the ball back, because inevitably the way that it's been going, they're going to score, right? And like, what are the Bills doing in these scenarios that are bringing them success? It's going, well, Josh Allen is our best player and we trust him, so let's just let him go and do his thing, right? And they don't do that. They decide, well, we're just going to try and like eat a little bit of clock here and then kick it away and hope they don't get back close to us. Like, you're 3rd and 9. Well, actually, I think it's pretty much all from the 9. You're on your own 30 or thereabouts. You go for a 1-yard run, a 0-yard run. These guys have timeouts at this point, by the way, so you're trying to get them to burn timeouts. Understand that. So you're 3rd and 9 on your own 30. There's a minute and a half left in the game, and you decide to get Lamar Jackson in shotgun to try and do a pass to DeAndre Hopkins, and a pass that's short of the sticks, I might add, as well. Like, that is 3 or 4 yards short of the sticks. How, if you've got Lamar Jackson and you've got Derrick Henry, are you not going, well, we will run around a bit. We'll just try and find an opening. We'll do a triple option. We'll do whatever. Put the ball in the hands of the guy who's been able to do that throughout the day, and just go for it. Like, worst case scenario, the guys still have to use their timeout and you still get to punt. But like, why is your idea a pass short of the sticks to a 39-year-old wide receiver? Like, I just don't understand. And I think that's the problem, is that as soon as they got up by what was it? They were up by about 15 points at one stage after their touchdown in the second half. I think they just got incredibly conservative in their play calling because like it just goes punt, fumble, punt. Like that's their last three drives in this game. They go but 6 yards, 4 yards, 7 yards. Whereas everything before then was 85 yards, 69 yards, 23 yards, 65 yards, 68 yards. Like I think as soon as they get any kind of lead, because it had me thinking back to the playoff games with the Chiefs and things like that, where whenever they've gotten ahead, they just shut down the play calling. Go like, our defense is good enough, we don't need to do anything anymore. And I think that might be where the problem's coming from. I think you're onto something. But yeah, that's part of a wider discussion. I would say both teams coming out of this are feeling good about the team, feeling worried about how sustainable this is going to look. The Bills are happy they won, but they don't want to have to go through that every week. The Ravens are gutted they lost, and there's going to be stern talkings too. But I think the biggest talking is going to have to come from the head coach with himself in a mirror saying, "Stop being a pussy."
I mean, it is interesting because you think about obviously Harbaugh. A lot of Harbaugh's reputation is based upon the Super Bowl win, and in that Super Bowl, they were clawing back a very big deficit. So it's not like they were ever in a situation in that game where they had to hold on to a lead for very long either. So maybe it is a thing. I mean, it's something to maybe examine more, or if there are any Ravens fans out there can maybe give us the stats. But maybe it is a thing that Harbaugh teams, I mean, they do lose big leads, but maybe it is because they just stop trying to score points, which in the modern NFL is just not a good way to play. Yeah.
Yeah, because like I'm just going through it, and like all they're doing is from the get go just trying to run clock, and it's just not working for them at all. Like it's just there's nothing creative, nothing inventive, and I think that's something they're going to need to work out. Now look, you're not going to come up against teams that are going to score 41 points on you every week anyway. Like that's fine, but you will in the playoffs, and that's the problem. Next up, we've got the Friday night football game, Chiefs at Chargers, that was down in Brazil, 21-27. Xavier Worthy was knocked out of this on the third play of the game when Kelsey ran into him on kind of a messed up crossing route, and that kind of stifled the Chiefs' offense at the start. Herbert had a career day here, 25 of 34 for 318 yards, 3 touchdowns, and he also added 32 yards on the ground. Marion Hampton, the rookie, led out the running backs. They didn't have a huge amount of success on the ground, but they really didn't need to because the Chiefs secondary were absolutely horrendous in this game. I think the changes at safety are causing Spags some issues. He's used to kind of sending safety blitzes and rotating, but I think they just don't have the quality of players back there. I think this is quite well evidenced by the fact that the Chargers had 5 receivers who had receptions of 15 yards or more on them. So like, not just the burners, everybody was getting deep on the Chiefs in that one, and the Chargers stayed cool under mounting pressure in the fourth quarter. Mahomes got out to a very slow start in this one. So the Chiefs kind of fell into a bit of a hole. They went punt, punt, punt in the first quarter, not really gaining too much in the way of yards in any of them. Two of those 3 were just 3-play drives. They didn't even get a first down on them. But then as soon as they got into the second quarter, it started to turn around a little bit. They were still trailing, but they kind of sped up. Field goal, touchdown, field goal was how they closed out the rest of the game. It was an impressive game from Mahomes. Unfortunately, the supporting cast weren't really there. 24 of 39 for him, 258 yards and a touchdown. But the deep threat was gone with Xavier Worthy, and they kind of had to shift over to looking at Hollywood Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster while I screamed, "What year is it?" out my window. They only had 57 yards rushing in this game. They actually had an incredibly high success rate when rushing the ball, but because they were down by quite a bit, they weren't able to kind of focus in the game plan on that. And I think that was always a criticism previously of Reed. So I think that might be something that I'll have to review, particularly if there's going to be multiple weeks of not having Worthy back. Hollywood Brown, as I mentioned, became the top target. He caught 10 balls for 99 yards. 10 balls for 99 yards will suggest to you that the depth of target that the Chiefs were throwing to was significantly different than what the game plan had been coming in. So Mahomes tried to put the team on his back, but the lack of talent around him hurt a little bit. The defensive side was The front seven were okay. Tranquil and Karlaftis had good days. Tranquil had 2 sacks and Karlaftis had one. Karlaftis was just absolutely blowing up his side of the line as well. It was going great, but they basically just played off to the other side of the line, and because the pass defense wasn't very good, they didn't have to go through the run game. So that wasn't too bad. I thought Jones looked a little bit slow in this one. I'm not sure if it's just age catching up with him, or he tends to start slow and build momentum through the year, but it wasn't great, particularly the contain on 3rd and 14 that allowed the Chargers to finish this one out. It was him who was meant to have it, and he got goaded into coming in and biting on a move, and that's why we saw Herbert being able to pick up the first down and close out the game for them. There was an interesting decision on the Chiefs' part to go for a field goal. So there's 2.5 minutes left. They were at the Chargers 9-yard line, and they decided to go for the field goal at that point. Now, obviously, look, that brought it to within a one-score game. So either way, they were going to have to score again. But you kind of look at that and you think maybe they should have gone for it, because while not flashy, essentially returning to the really boring ball that we saw previously, the Chiefs offense from the second quarter onward was just incredibly efficient. Like the second half, I was looking up some stats on this and I saw something mentioned, and I kind of thought, that's mad. The absolute maximum number of yards that the Chiefs could have gained in the second half with their possessions was 223 yards. So like if they just completed every drive and got every single yard that was available, they gained 214. So it was just those 9 yards that they didn't get that they could
Wow.
have gotten. So like that is incredibly efficient, particularly given what they had as offensive weapons around them. And that makes me look at this and go, it was a 4th and goal. You had 9 yards for it. Like I get that if you miss it, you're gone. But like their defense had not really been stopping them. Like the Chargers had scored touchdowns on their 2 previous drives, and had burnt a lot of clock off. So I think you probably should have gone for it there. I understand the reticence too, but like I think they should have gone for it there myself. But yeah, no, it was a good game, well played by the Chargers, a good victory. They get that monkey off their back, and they win their opener against the Chiefs here. For the Chiefs, it's not the offense they wanted to see, but I do think there's good stuff once you look into it. Good performance from certain players. I think maybe a bit more run game and allowing them to maybe have a game plan that doesn't involve having a fast wide receiver would help. For the Chargers, just looked like they were moving with ease. Their defense worked very well. I don't think this was a huge defensive challenge for them, so it's hard to decide exactly where they, sit in a pecking order. But yeah, like it was a very good performance from them. Their line held up quite well. Their wide receivers, I was amazed. Keenan Allen still got some juice. Did not expect that. I thought he was going to be disappeared again. But yeah, no, strong opening from them. The AFC West is going to be a tough battle.
Yeah, I mean, I really, really have a lot of time for Jim Harbaugh, as I've said, and I have a lot of expectation with his Chargers. And they definitely, on the offensive side, there was an awful lot going on there that we didn't expect. We expected that the Chargers would be a run-first team, and instead it's Justin Herbert out there, balling for 300 odd yards, 3 touchdowns, throwing to multiple guys, Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnson, Lad McConkey. It suddenly looks like they have a really dynamic passing game, which none of us expected Harbaugh to pivot towards, especially given the effort they put into the running game in the preseason. So it's a very interesting place to be. I think the Chargers now suddenly look like a very good team on the offensive side. Obviously, the defensive it started off quite well. I was surprised by how poorly the Chiefs started off offensively, but you've kind of broken it down as to what the game plan was in terms of that. I mean, the offense seemed a bit more, from the Chargers' perspective, the defense seemed a bit more bend, don't break. And then in the fourth quarter, when they had a lead, they maybe kind of left up a little bit. They followed the script. I think there was a script. I think the Chargers definitely had. There's certain games you can realize that certain teams are in control of that game in terms of the tempo, or the dynamic of what's going on. It definitely felt like the Jim Harbaugh script was being kept to for the Chargers, where the Chiefs were constantly trying to react to a certain extent to what was happening. And I would say, the Chiefs have had poor offensive games last season as well, and it did kind of, there were moments it reminded me of kind of the worst, the lesser moments from last season, the Chiefs, where the offense just wasn't clicking all that well, and it didn't feel like even Mahomes kind of got into his groove until they were already, 12, 15 points down or whatever. So I mean, as a Chiefs fan, I'm sure you're not overly worried. I mean, there's still an awful lot of talent there, but obviously the offense is just not clicking where it needs to be. And you would expect the defense in that situation. At least last year, Spags' defense has historically been the thing that holds the thing together when the offense isn't working. And I kind of felt that there wasn't an awful lot of defensive responsiveness from the Chiefs as to what the Chargers were throwing at them. So, I mean, I was just very impressed by the Chargers, and it has vindicated. I hoped and I thought this would be a good year for the Chargers because I think they're in a good place, and year two should build on what Harbaugh did in year one, and it definitely looks like they're going to be there. Competitive for a very long time, and getting a first win to get to that 4-9 as opposed to 3-9 we talked about last week for the Chargers, getting that monkey off the back and beating their rival.
That was 3-19, Sean.
Oh, 3-19. Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, now 4-19. Yeah. So they only need to win another 15 in a row. So yeah, I think the Chargers are in a good place, and obviously with the Chargers, it's always, can they build on this? Can they make this a consistent thing week in, week out? Because they've had moments like this, even going back to the Rivers era or whatever, when they looked like one of the best teams in the league, but haven't been able to sustain it. For the Chiefs, I mean, slow start to the season sometimes happens, but yeah, they got to fix that offense sometime soon. They got to know what. I mean, it's such a weird thing because Andy Reid, is considered to be a great offensive mind. Mahomes is one of the most talented quarterbacks we've ever seen. You should be able to. They've had entire seasons where they've had to work with what they've gotten or what the defenses have given them, and they found solutions. And it just kind of feels like they haven't quite found that solution yet. So maybe it's a week 10 thing onwards. Once they figure it out, the Chiefs will just steamroller everyone again. But it certainly doesn't look all that great at the moment.
No, I agree. I think we'll see a bit more next week. I think a lot of this was just whatever they had prepped as a game plan was kind of out the window with the speed off the field. But yeah. Next up, Lions at Packers, 13-27. Ooh, this is a bit more one-sided than we thought it would be, Sean. You worried for Dan Campbell and his boys?
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about struggling offenses, and you want to talk about preseason narratives. Obviously, the departure of Ben Johnson as kind of the superstar offensive coordinator gave a lot of questions as to where was this Lions team going to go. And with the loss of Frank Ragnow under center, it was like, are the Lions entering a kind of a transition on the offensive side, and what's that going to look like? And if this is what their offense is transitioning into, then they're in a very big trouble, because this was probably the worst Lions offensive performance I can recall seeing in the Dan Campbell era. I mean, Goff was decent, 225 touchdown, an unfortunate interception, but other than that, he kind of looked okay. Laporta, looked like a very good thing, but the running game, which is supposed to be their big strength, was absolutely non-existent. Montgomery with 25 yards, their biggest rusher. Gibbs only had 19. The O-line took an absolute battering from Micah Parsons and co. And that looks like suddenly, from being one of their strengths, suddenly the Lions O-line might be a weakness. So there's definite problems on the offense. And again, it's week one, and we've seen in the past with Dan Campbell teams, it does take them maybe 2 or 3 weeks to kind of get where they need to go. But on these offenses, if this is what the Lions offense is putting out, they are not going to be winning 15 games this year. Let me tell you that. On the other side, the Packers look like a real team, a really solid contender team. Obviously, they've got the defense that we talked about in preseason and the improvements they've had under Jeff Hafley, and now to add Micah Parsons to that, and it was quite explosive. He had a big fourth quarter sack. He was constantly disrupting the rhythm of the O-line. It all looked very good. But even more impressive maybe was the offensive side, because Jordan Love was really matured into a very excellent quarterback. He had 188 yards, 2 touchdowns here. He really looks in the mood. The players around him, I think they had a good spread of players as well. I don't think they were overly relying on one receiver to the others. They were, had a number of long drives. They kind of set the tone for the game and kind of controlled it in that sense. So yeah, Packers could be the real deal. They certainly look like the full package on the offense and on the defensive side. So it definitely could be the year for them. But for the Lions, I would hate to say that the gravy train is over, but they really got to find a lot of offensive answers very quickly, because this is just not good enough for where the expectations for this organization are right now.
Yeah, and like it's Micah Parsons was there. He played whatever 22 snaps or something like that, and he played well. But like he wasn't such a difference maker that was the thing that pushed us over the edge. The Packers looked like they were more prepared, more ready to go. They knew exactly what they were doing. They looked more professional than the Lions in this game. They knew exactly what they wanted to do, and they executed. The Lions, you could see some of what they were trying to do, and certain things just weren't quite there. I wonder if some of this is stemming from, obviously they lost their center, and line cohesion, particularly for what you're expecting to be a run heavy situation, is very important, and hopefully they can kind of pick that up moving forward. As you talked about, the run game was just kind of not happening at all. But look, this was incredibly impressive from the Packers. They're definitely a force to be reckoned to, if this is anything, reckoned with rather, if this is anything to go by. For the Lions, a lot of room to improve, but yeah, like look, it's early in the season. Maybe this is just a slow start for a team that's only getting used to having to play January football. So they're not weathered into it yet. As we say every week, look, all games are important. Just some games are less important. So we're gonna fly through the other games of the week here in the dump off. First up, Vikings at Bears. 27-24. JJ McCarthy claws back from a 17-6 halftime deficit. He went 13 of 20 for 143 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception. He also had 25 rushing yards and a touchdown on the ground. He really got into rhythm in the fourth quarter with 21 points coming in that fourth quarter. It was interesting though, there wasn't too much through the air. Justin Jefferson only had 4 catches in this day. Whether this might be a new look for the Minnesota Vikings, or maybe it's just as they're kind of getting him up to speed, because 20 pass attempts to 26 rushing attempts is a bit more of a split that direction we've been used to. The Bears were better than they have been, but they weren't quite there. Caleb Williams went 21 of 35 for 210 yards, a touchdown, 58 rushing yards and a touchdown on the ground. But they needed his legs, because Swift, their lead back, was not looking good. He only had 3 yards a carry. They missed a field goal to open the second half, and that'll haunt them, because obviously it's a very close game. Then the Wright interception touchdown for 74 yards was the highlight of their defense. The big problem with the Bears, and something they're going to need to look at, is discipline. They had 12 penalties in this game that were 127 yards, which is a huge amount to be giving up. So they'll try and fix that for next week, and hopefully both these teams will develop. Bengals at Browns up next. The Bengals continue their slow start, but they do win 17-16. This was horrendous. They were outgained by the Browns 327 yards to 141. They had 7 yards of offense in the second half and still managed it. And a statement I didn't think I'd be making: the Bengals defense is what saved them. 2 second half interceptions, which I will say are both on the receivers, not on the quarterback. Flacco had them in the guy's hands and they just kind of bounced it. Their new kicker Schmidt makes 2 kicks in this game. It was just sloppy. The Browns should have had this one, but they let it slip away. Garrett was trying to ramp them up. He got 2 sacks in this game, but it just wasn't enough. They weren't able to slow them down. The Bengals will, I believe Joe Burrow said, we stole one there, and you're dead right. The Browns should have had this one, and they fucked it. But hey, that's them as a franchise. Panthers at Jags next, 10-26, dominant performance from the Jaguars. Lawrence looked kind of mid in this game, 157 yards, a touchdown, interception, but their run game was just massive, so they didn't need to worry about it. 200 yards on the ground. Travis Etienne had 143 yards, average of 8.9 yards a carry. The Panthers looked disjointed entirely. Young had only a 50% completion rate. He went for 154 yards, a touchdown and 2 interceptions, and lost a fumble. No one really impressed in this game outside of the Jags. Defense looked pretty good, but I can't tell if that was because the Panthers were terrible, and obviously, as I mentioned, the run game for the Jags looked great, but Lawrence didn't look fantastic, so we'll see if that develops as time moves on. Cardinals at Saints, 20-13, a scrappy tight win for Arizona, 4 incompletions at the 18-yard line for New Orleans meant they had to go home without success. One of them was caught, but then was punched out by, I believe it was Budda Baker. New Orleans probably should have tied this game up. It was very, very close. We would have expected the Cardinals to be a bit further ahead, but the Saints a little bit more competitive. Rattler looked a little bit better than we expected. Murray, not so much. Murray took 5 sacks. He had 2 touchdowns and had 50 yards rushing. They did seem to find a connection with Harrison. Harrison caught 5 of the 6 targets for 71 yards and a touchdown. Both teams missed a field goal. Rattler was 27 of 46 for 214 yards, had some good scrambles on the ground and seemed to favour his tight end Johnson, who caught 8 balls for 76 yards. But frankly, I don't think a route to success for any team is to have Spencer Rattler passing 46 times in a game, so maybe sort that out for the next one, Saints. Giants at Commanders, 6-21. This was very one-sided. Lockdown red zone defense for the Washington. They held the Commanders to 6 points from 2 trips within the 5-yard line. Wilson was under a lot of pressure in this one. He had a fumble in the game. He didn't look great. There's a lot of pressure for Jackson Dart to start coming in. Dival kind of said that he was going to keep Wilson as the starter, and then kind of said that he was going to wait and see, and that's a discussion they'll have when they get home, so we'll see what's happening. Commanders look good but not great. Daniels went 19 of 30 for 233 yards and a touchdown, also had 68 yards rushing, good, but we don't know really how competitive this Giants defense is as much as it was hyped in the off season. Bill JMC actually got to be the lead back, so all you fantasy people who were kind of hyping him, you're dead right, you got it right. And Debo Samuel looks good, and he got to eat in this one. 7 receptions and 1 rushing thing. Workmanlike from the Commanders, but they didn't need to do much more. We'll see how they fare against stronger competition. The Buccaneers took on the Falcons. This was heartbreaking for Falcons fans. 23-20. The Falcons had it and they just let it slip away. Penix looked very good, 27 of 42, 298 yards, a touchdown, 21 rushing yards and a touchdown on the ground as well. Now, he led an 18-play, 91-yard, 9-minute drive to get it to 20-17. And they said, well, that's great. There's very little time left on the clock. I've done it. I've rallied us. I've got us our 4th quarter comeback. And the defense just immediately gave up a 1-minute 18 touchdown drive. They get all the way back up there to be able to tie it up, and Koo misses the field goal. The run game was sub 2.5 yards a carry, so that wasn't very exciting. They did most of their damage for the air. Pitts was resurgent, and we were texting at the time saying it turns out all he needs to do was to have Sean Butler stop believing in him, and then he'd have a great time. The defense looked better, but they crumbled. The defense looked a good bit better. Like, the new pieces are slotting in well, but they crumbled in that 4th quarter. Baker only had 167 yards through the air, but he accounted for 3 touchdowns. They leaned heavily on the rookie Ibuka, who had 76 yards and 2 touchdowns. Their running back Irving struggled enough. This was a skin of their teeth win for the Buccaneers. It did not look like a team that was head and shoulders above the Falcons in the race for that division. Dolphins at Colts, 8-33. One day closer to death. McDaniels, one day closer to death. He's on the march to an early firing. Jones looked dominant in this one, 22 of 29 for 272 yards, a touchdown, and 2 rushing touchdowns. Let me restate that. Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes, looked dominant in this game. Now, either he's been hiding this incredibly well for the 7+ years he's been in the league, or maybe the Dolphins are absolutely terrible. The rookie tight end Warren looked really good, really solid hands. I think he had 7 catches and then also had a run in this game. This was so one-sided that in the first half the Dolphins had 43 total yards and Indianapolis had ran 43 plays in that time. Tua went 14 of 23 for 114 yards, 2 interceptions, a fumble, took 3 sacks. The Dolphins ran for 78 yards. Hill and Waddle combined for 8 receptions for 70 yards. This was abysmal. The Dolphins are a walking corpse. Hopefully they can figure something out. The Colts, fantastic win, great for them. They were honouring their owner who died over the recent months and everything, and it was lovely ceremony. I cannot tell if the Colts are good or not. Their defense definitely seems okay, but I have no idea whether this offense is good or not after that game. We'll see next week, I suppose. Raiders at Patriots, 20-13. The Raiders leaned on Geno Smith, who had 362 passing yards, and their swarming defense in this one. They got key sacks from Max Crosby to be able to seal the road win. Ashton Genty, the superstar running back they drafted, got a lot of carries, but was getting stuffed quite a bit. The New England defense were able to kind of hold that in. 4 sacks for May in this game, who went 30 of 46 for 287 yards, a touchdown and interception, but they just weren't really able to get into rhythm on it. Booty had a breakout game. He was over 100 yards, but there was no real run game to speak of. Henderson didn't break out, and the change of pace with Stevenson didn't work either. So the Raiders there's only a touchdown in it, but it felt an awful lot easier for them than that. Boo-hoo to all of us who thought the Patriots were going to be a bit stronger this year, but we'll see. Maybe they'll round into form. 49ers at Seahawks, 17-32. The 49ers overcame some offensive miscues and a tough Seahawks defense, pulling ahead with a late go-ahead touchdown under pressure. Purdy went 25 of 35 in this game, with 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Christian McCaffrey, who everyone was worried might not play in this game, touched the ball 36 times, I think, and had 142 combined yards. Ricky Pearsall, the hype was real, went for over 100 yards in this one. Now, they did have quite a bit of luck in this game, so we mentioned there that Kittle left early in this one. His replacement was Tongas, who I think is a 4th or 5th year player who had never had a catch before this point in the NFL. He caught a touchdown off a rebound. He played quite well. He's going to be your fantasy waiver wire acquisition for a lot of people. Seahawks were in position to win as well in this one, but then unfortunately a strip sack ended it all. Darnold looked good in fits and spurts, but overall wasn't consistent enough and kind of wasn't a driving force in this game. He had 16 of 23 for 150 yards, so kind of what we were expecting to see here. Very safe, I think, is what they're going to try and play here, like high percentage passes. They had 3 fumbles, 2 which they lost, just overall very sloppy. Their defense looks really good from the Seahawks side, but 220 yards of offense is not going to be enough. They weren't nearly explosive enough in the run game for the amount of investment that they put in onto that offensive line and the skill of the running backs that they have. They didn't have a single run that got over 9 yards in this game, and you need to get more explosive if that's going to be your identity on that side of the ball. Titans at Broncos, 12-20. A tough start for Cam Ward. We talked about it in the previews last week. This is a difficult defense to go against. He looked decent enough, but the team around him is just not quite there. The stats look ugly. 12 of 28 for 112 yards. Took 6 sacks and had a fumble. The Broncos defense looked legit in this game, but their offense struggled as well. Bo Nix went 25 of 40 for 176 yards, 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. And frankly, he should have had 3 or 4 interceptions. 1 or 2 were dropped in this one. It was messy, and particularly given there was a tendency at the tail end of last season for Nix to throw a bit dodgier balls, his interception numbers started to pick up. That's something that I'm a little bit concerned about if I'm a Denver fan. But you know, they got good balance on their wide receivers. 11 different people caught passes from him during the day, so they've clearly got depth at that position. Harvey flashed. RJ Harvey, the rookie running back, he had a 50-yard run at one point, but he wasn't getting the bulk of the carries. I imagine that's going to increase as this moves forward. This was a hard watch of a game, frankly. The second half of this game had an interception, 2 field goals, 1 touchdown, 6 punts, 4 turnover on 4th downs, and a fumble. This was scrappy, sloppy, messy. This is what we would expect out of the Titans, maybe, particularly with a young play caller under center and a lot of people calling for the head of the coach already. The Broncos, if the Broncos want to be taken seriously and want to be looked at as a playoff team, they need to be better than this. Their defense looked fine, their offense was not good. And finally, Texans at Rams, 9-14. A game that neither side seemed to want to win on offense. Stafford went 21 of 29, 245 yards, a touchdown and 3 sacks. He fared the best out of it. The numbers look okay, but they just weren't turning them into points really at all. Puka had 130 yards and Adams had 51 yards, leading the way. And the defense for the Texans was very, very, very strong. They put a body hit on Adams early on that I was initially worried was going to drop him out of the game entirely, and then Puka got hit so hard in the head that he had to go off and get a gauze and bandaging put on it because his head was bleeding, and then had to go back and get it reapplied because it kept bleeding. It was a hard hitting defense from the other side, but the Rams defense were really hammering CJ Stroud. I said in the preview my concern for this Texans team is that their offensive line wasn't good last year, and I thought they hadn't improved that. CJ Stroud was pressured on 41% of his dropbacks, He got sacked 3 times and threw an interception. The defense forced 2 turnovers in this game. Stroud went 19 of 27 for 188 yards and an interception, a complete day to forget. He had 32 yards on the ground, but that was about it for bright sparks on him. Chubb was the lead back. He actually looked surprisingly more sparkly than I thought he would be, but the line issues persist, and this is going to be a long season for them if that continues to happen. For the Rams, they get away with it, but it wasn't impressive. Their defense looks good, but their offense was kind of 6th and 7th. Just particularly red zone stuff, they just weren't able to convert things into points. For the Texans side, like, the Rams are a good defense. In particular, they have an incredibly good pass rush. If I remember correctly, I think all of the sacks came from different players. So, like, you didn't necessarily know where you were looking for them. And when you have a Swiss cheese O-line, that's going to be a problem. Hopefully, they can get it together as the season progresses, and hopefully they won't have to face quite as vigorous a pass rush. But until that line gets sorted, they're going nowhere fast. So that's the jump off for this week, and we will take it for the games next week. So first up, Sean, Thursday Night Football, Washington at Green Bay. This is actually quite a tasty game.
Yeah. I mean, two teams we were interested in coming into the season in terms of what they could offer, and one of them, the Packers, looked like the real deal. The Commanders, well, not the greatest challenge in the world in the Giants, but they got the job done. So this is going to be an important game. I mean, you're talking about 2 possible playoff teams here. I would say that the Packers, as we said, are maybe a little bit more further along on their journey. They look so good. They look like the complete package offensively, and that, given what they did to the Lions, they look like they might have the defensive side of it as well. Whereas the Commanders, it does feel a little bit like second season consolidation, that they know it works and they're not trying to take too many risks. They're trying to build on it. The Daniels McLaurin connection seems to be in a good place, and Debo seems to have found a nice slot, but I don't think they're quite where the Packers are yet in terms of their development. And given the Packers are at home as well, I think we give the edge to the Packers in this one, but it should be a good game.
Yeah, like it's always home team on short week for Thursday nights. Green Bay do look more comprehensive. I'm excited to see Washington another week in, see what they can do here, and see if this is just a Green Bay defense that's properly elite, or maybe it was a slow start from the Lions flattering it. But particularly with Parsons with an extra week learning that system. We've gone for Green Bay across the board. Next up, Giants at Dallas. We've gone for Dallas across the board. Giants didn't look great last week. Giants did not look great last week. Dallas actually looked pretty good. They put it up to Philly. Their offense looked fun. Giants have a decent pass rush, but not a great backfield. So Dak and CD should be able to put some stuff up here. We've gone for Dallas across the board. I think even if the Giants change quarterback, I don't know if I'm going to back the rookie in his first game on the road against a divisional rival.
No, I mean, both these teams we thought we're not looking forward to their seasons coming in, because we thought, the Giants are a bit of a mess, especially offensively, and the Cowboys have just come off the Parsons trade. But week 1, definitely, I think the Cowboy fan bases have to be a little bit happier with their defeat than the Giants did. The Giants look as bad as we think they are. The Cowboys don't look as bad as we feared they might be. And I think that's the difference. I think the Cowboys are an edge of the playoffs kind of team. And so they should definitely win a home game against the Giants, whereas the Giants could honestly be the worst team in the league. Maybe they're not quite the worst team in the league, but they're definitely bottom 5, I would say.
No, the worst team in the league at the moment is the Dolphins. For sure, it's the Dolphins. Seattle-Pittsburgh, Sean.
Yeah, obviously the Rodgers Express moves on to the next game. I don't think he has quite any grudges with the Seahawks, so maybe he won't be quite as motivated for this one. Offensively, we think the Steelers looked like they were clicking quite a bit. Maybe they needed a little bit more in the run game, but the passing game, Rodgers, Metcalf, the pieces around it does seem to click quite well. The defense a little bit weaker. So I think the Seahawks will be an interesting challenge, because the Seahawks, obviously, we thought maybe a little bit limited offensively, or maybe conservative. I mean, you can go either way with them. I mean, we got the bad Sam Darnold last weekend, but we have seen that the good Sam Darnold in a proper system can be productive. So it's a real question, I guess, here in this game is, how good are the Seattle defense? They gave the Niners a tough game, but this Pittsburgh offense does seem to have a little bit of a spark about them. So I think that's where the game will be decided: is can Rodgers figure out this defense before this defense figures him out, and that will decide who wins this. And I'm going to give the edge to Pittsburgh because I think we saw a little bit of the old Aaron Rodgers in them, and I think there is a little bit of a spark to the Steelers team this year.
Yeah, I think a lot of medical manufacturing is up in Seattle, right? So there's Aaron Rodgers. He doesn't like traditional medicine, so that's his angle for being mad at Seattle. Rams at Tennessee up next.
Maybe that's got to be Tomlin's job for the year, is to find the reason for Aaron to hate the team they're playing.
Hey, Aaron, they killed Kurt Cobain. You're a big Nirvana fan, right? Rams at Tennessee next. We got the Rams across the board. Their offense wasn't overly exciting, but their defense was hard hitting. They've got a lot of pass rush coming at them. We just saw Cam Ward have to deal with a tough defense and got his shit knocked around, like 6 sacks last week. I would imagine that you're going to see something similar again this week if that's the case. Tennessee are just not at the races at the moment. I'd love them to prove me wrong, but they really just don't feel like they've got the quality anywhere on the roster. Cam Ward seems grand, but like the supporting cast isn't there. And this Rams team, I'd hope to see them move the ball a bit more effectively or convert their offensive yardage into points a bit more effectively in this game. But yeah, Rams should definitely be able to walk this one. Buffalo Jets up next, Sean.
AFC East. Both these teams coming into, they should be happy with their opening day. As we talked about, the Jets, even though they lost, have looked like one of the better Jets teams we've seen in quite a while. The Bills have in Josh Allen a guy who single-handedly can win games, and he's definitely reached that stage of his evolution as a player where he can just decide to win a game, and he does. You got to be worried about their defense. So it's going to be two interesting battles because you've got this quite good young Jets core on the defensive side. It hasn't quite come together, facing an immense challenge in what Josh Allen can throw at them, and in Cook and Coleman and the pieces around him as well. So that's an interesting challenge. And the other side of it is Fields. Can Fields, ball out against a shaky defense? The Bills' defense maybe not quite where it needs to be. We've seen a little bit of spiciness from the Jets' offense. So I think both sides of this game are going to be quite interesting to watch. And I think it'll be closer than people think it will be. But I think you just got to back Josh Allen in these kind of situations, and I think he's in a place where I just don't think he's going to lose many games, and certainly not a divisional one this early in the season. So I'm going to go for the Bills, but other people have other ideas, Connor.
Yeah, I just decided I'm swapping to the Jets in this one. The Buffalo defense.
I can see it.
Yeah, it's the thing. Like this Jets team, we're moving the ball well. This Buffalo defense is terrible. They're slightly less rest because they were Sunday night. And I've got a feeling that this Jets team won't take its foot off the gas if they they won't stop scoring points if they can keep scoring points, because basically half the roster is playing for jobs in the future. Like they don't have the stability that a bunch of the other guys do. No, like I think on paper Buffalo are the stronger team here, but I think this could turn into a really exciting blow for blow, like high scoring-y kind of game, and I think that'll be quite fun. So I just thought I'd throw a spanner in the works and go for the Jets. New England, Miami next. We've gone for New England across the board because Miami are the worst team in football.
Basically.
New England can't win in Miami though. Like that's the thing. They don't tend to do well in Miami.
And I would say the Pats do seem not quite as explosive as we hoped they would be, especially offensively. It does kind of feel a little bit like it's Vrabel's Titans, except they haven't quite figured out how to win games yet. So
he hasn't got a Derrick Henry yet, yeah.
No, it's true, yeah. I think this will be an ugly game more than anything else.
Oh, yeah.
Low scoring, but you would hope the Pats have enough to beat the Dolphins.
This would be one to catch the 3.5 minute long highlight video afterwards. Yeah, the thing is, look, I could see Miami coming out and just going, well, actually, because is your man Christian, your defensive back, is he back yet or is he still out?
I'm not sure. I'll have to check.
Because like Miami could come out and just go like, do you know what, we will just be able to go first read all the time and we'll be able to score. Like, but I don't rate them at all after last week. I just need them to show me something that there's some life in there, but yeah, not at the moment. Jacksonville at Cincinnati. We got for Cincinnati across the board. Like Jacksonville actually looked okay. Their defense was good. Their run game was good. Cincy's defense looked a little bit better. The thing is, look, I can't expect with the amount of money and the amount of talent that's sitting on that Cincinnati offense that they're not going to get it together at some point soon. Jacksonville are a good defense, but you'd imagine Cincy at home, this is like their home opener. If you want to be taken seriously, you gotta beat people like Jacksonville. That's
Yeah.
it's just it. And like Baltimore, like this is your chance to kind of push ahead, get yourself a bit of breathing room. Like you got to press the advantage at this point. So, but the thing is, I could see Jacksonville coming in and doing it. Also, increasingly, I gotta say, that draft pick is on the basis of one game, it's not working out very well. But we'll see. Um,
Yeah, I mean, you got to back the Bengals because of what they have offensively, and it does seem like their defense, albeit they were only playing the Browns, may have a little bit something about it this year. Whereas the Jags are just very much mired in midness. It kind of feels like the run game may be clicking together, but we haven't seen the explosive start from Trevor Lawrence we might have expected under Liam Cohen. So I'm not sure the Jags are quite have shown us yet that they are evolving into something better than they were, whereas at least the Bengals will always have Burrow and Chase and Higgins, and you can rely on them to turn up every once in a while and score points. But I mean, maybe starting to think that the best thing that could happen to the Bengals is if they go on a losing streak and Zach Taylor loses his job, because this organization is not going where a player of Joe Burrow's talent deserves it to go, for sure.
no, San Fran at New Orleans, we've gone for San Fran across the board. New Orleans not great, San Fran a little bit better. New Orleans were a bit of a tougher out than we were expecting them to be, but they don't have they don't seem to have the ceiling that you'd need. San Fran, there's a lot of injuries, so this might be a different story if if it's a different quarterback starting for them. But yeah, like I think San Francisco just have the talent on the roster to be able to go down to New Orleans and beat them.
Yeah, I mean, this is arguably the most talented roster out there if all the players are healthy in San Francisco versus arguably the least talented roster in the entire NFL in Saints. Now, albeit that does seem to be deliberate on their part. Yeah, Saints maybe a little bit better, although I would argue it might be more of an indictment of the Cardinals than, a bigging up of the Saints. But the Niners should have enough talent to overcome what little the Saints can throw at them. I can't really see the Saints winning too many games, and this certainly wouldn't be one I'd mark as a possible win.
Yeah, poor Cleveland. They're heading up to Baltimore. Baltimore are angry. Baltimore must be fed.
But it's also an AFC North game, and AFC North games are notoriously just awful slugfest sometimes when they want to be. I can definitely see the Browns are dragging the Ravens down to their level into like a 13-12 kind of game. But, if Derrick Henry is still playing at the level he appears to be, and if the Ravens play for the first three quarters like they played for the first three quarters against the Bills, they'll be out of sight, even by Baltimore standards. In this one, the Browns just don't have a lot about them.
It feels to me like you're going to have backups in for Baltimore for parts of the fourth quarter. I don't know. I suppose revenge game for Joe Flacco. Is that our storyline on this?
Does he want revenge on the Ravens? I mean, it's probably some of his happiest memories are in Baltimore.
They've cast him aside though. They've got a new, hotter, blacker Joe Flacco, I suppose. Like
that was 5 years ago. I think Joe Flacco's mature enough to have moved on with his life.
As he moves on to his 8th NFL team in a row, trying to find a home. But yeah, no, Baltimore should win this by country mile. Next is your pick of the week: Chicago at Detroit.
Yeah, the Ben Johnson Bowl. Obviously, there's a big narrative coming into this as to the Lions were the team and now they've lost their big OC and the offense just did not function against the Packers in anything that would be recognizable from a championship caliber team, and they need to get that right and need to get that right quickly. You probably don't want to, if you're honest with the Detroit Lions, you probably don't want to be facing a divisional rival who knows you quite well and you occasionally have quite awkward games with. I remember the Lions, I think, dropped a loss to the Bears maybe last year or the year before, and it was just one of those games where the teams know each other too well, and Jared Goff in particular, in situations where the opposing team knows him quite well, can have bad games. So this is an important game for the Lions just to get right, because they could easily lose this game. Johnson knows everything there is to know about this offense. He'd be talking to his DC about what needs to be done. The Bears are going to have schemes upon schemes for how to deal with the Lions, no doubt. So it'll be quite an interesting battle on that side of it. But then the other thing is, we haven't seen an awful lot from what the Bears evolution and Caleb Williams and all that in that first game, that they look at moments they looked okay, but they when push came to shove, the Bears just kind of faded away, and that's not what you'd want for them either. So the Bears, as we thought, are very much still in the early stages of this evolution, and so they're probably not at the Lions level. So you shouldn't expect them to win this one. I just have a sneaking suspicion the Lions are just going to have a dog shit game here, and we can. It's not impossible to think that they might be 0-2 by next Sunday. I hope not. I hope that they have enough in the tank to win this game, and they should do based on talent differential. But this is a really. I'm interested in this game because it's a really awkward game for the Lions to have to play, coming off of a bad loss to another divisional rival, to have to play this divisional rival that you're supposed to be better than, but you have a lot of awkward games against.
Yeah, no, the interconnectedness of the coaches and it's really not what you want as your second week on the schedule. Into the late slate, Denver at Indianapolis. I've gone for Indy. You guys have gone for Denver. This is just I'm interested to see what both these teams are. Both appeared to have very strong defenses last week, so that's very interesting. Denver had a bit of a mess on offense. Indianapolis had like an insane day on offense, but I think that was just a paper tiger thing against the Dolphins. So I think this is really going to help us root in what's this Indianapolis offense going to look like this season, and Denver are a real tough test for that. So like this will give us a realistic look at that. Denver going against this Indianapolis defense, they're tough, but they're not top of the league tough. I don't think. I think again flattered by the fact that we're playing the Dolphins. It'll give us an idea of what Indy's defense look like, but also maybe give us an idea of what Denver's offense looks like, because they struggled against against the Titans defense last week. So it's my pick of the week because I just think there's a lot to learn out of this game, and I'm really intrigued to see what happens. Is the Danny Dimes assance really a thing that's happening, or is Bo Nix kind of slipping away, turning into Bo Picks? Carolina at Arizona, Sean. Myself and Rhoda got for Arizona. You got for Carolina.
Yeah,
this is a shit game. This is a shit
to be
game.
A real factory of sadness game going about it. Neither of these teams particularly covered themselves in glory in week one. I mean, the Cardinals got the win, but they did beat an absolutely appalling Saints team, and they didn't really do it all that convincingly.
Yeah, sure, the Saints had 4 passes to win the game and just couldn't get it done. Like
that's the thing. I mean, the Saints should not be winning any games this year, and any team that lets them in with a chance to win in the fourth quarter does not deserve to be given respect. I mean, Marvin Harrison looks like he's maturing into the kind of receiver that we thought he would be, and so that's an upside for the Cardinals. But other than that, I don't know. There's an awful lot to like about this team. Their O-line seems to be a bit of a mess. Kyler is not quite improving in the ways we want. The running game was not really working at all for them. On the other side, I mean, the Panthers also were pretty bad. Let's just put that into perspective. Bryce Young, it's so hard to know if Bryce Young is a good quarterback or not, because he has days where he does look like he belongs, and then he has days like last week where it's not even that he's bad, it's just he just doesn't look good enough. He just doesn't look like he has a standard for the NFL, and he just makes too many mistakes. So there's a disjointedness to the Panthers that would suggest that maybe the Cardinals, with the impetus of the win and the high belief in themselves, will pull it out. But I just looked at this and went, I just can't back the Cardinals until they actually beat a good team. And so I think it's going to be a scrappy game, and I think that the Panthers might scrape it, because it'll just be one of those games where a team wins on a last-minute field goal and neither team is particularly happy about how they perform.
You see, this is the thing. I think Arizona are not a good team, but I think this is the level that they are above. So I think they feast on teams like Carolina, and that's what gets them to like 7 wins or whatever they end up on. Unless Carolina turn a corner, because they were dismal last week, like absolutely dismal, and they couldn't protect Bryce Young at all either. It was rough sledding. Whereas Arizona, they were sloppy, but there was sparks in it. Whereas Carolina, I'm just not feeling it at the moment. But yeah, I just think this is going to be a terrible game and no one should watch it. Speaking of the opposite of that, Philadelphia, Kansas City. We've gone for Philadelphia across the board, Sean. This is the second time in Mahomes' career that he's starting as a home underdog in betting.
Wow.
And the previous time was against the Bills, I think in a playoff game a while back, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. But yeah, look, we're going with Philly in this one. I think Kansas City, their line is better than it was, but their receivers aren't going to be there. Their defensive front seven are good, so they'll be good against the run. But like their defensive backs were all over the shop last week, and like I think Philly are going to do the opposite of what they did last week. I think they're just going to. I think they're going to go to the air a lot in this game, and I think they're going to find a lot of success in the air. And I think Kansas City will have a good game plan, and I think they'll be able to move the ball. And I think, I think this one was circled by Reed and everyone. Following the Super Bowl and kind of said, look, we need to show that we've got this turned around. So I think there'll be a focus on line play. There'll be a focus on trying to right some wrongs, but just with the combination of the injuries and suspensions to the wide receivers, even if they're incredibly effective, I I think it's going to be hard to keep pace because our defensive backs, like it's Swiss cheese defense last week, like they weren't stopping a cold. And this Philly team feels it's just got too much talent to not be able to exploit those bits. Barring Sutton actually kind of changes something schematically, or sorry, not Sutton. If Spags changes Sutton, Jesus, the defense was so bad last week. It's reminding me of Bob Sutton. Yeah, no, so I got to edge Philly in this game. I don't think they'll be miles ahead, but I don't think the Chiefs will be able to stop them. So I think it's going to end up high scoring and Philly being ahead.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of this, I would be worried about the Chiefs' offense and what they showed in Week 1, and have they got enough time to and the personnel to turn that around very quickly. I think the Chiefs, when they do have bad offensive situations like that, it does maybe sometimes take them a few weeks to work it out. But once they do work it out, then they're unstoppable. So maybe it's not quite there yet. The Eagles, I mean, yes, there's questions about the defense. And it's maybe not where it needs to be, but there's still quite a good team on the offense. Jalen Hurts has shown that he's become that guy. He's definitely become the guy, and they still got Saquon, and they've got a passing game they might actually use this week. So I just think the Eagles have just a little bit more about them at the moment as a team, and I don't think the Chiefs have shown us that they've quite been able to overcome that gap that the Super Bowl demonstrated in these two teams.
Yeah, we just need to get Jalen Hurts to spit on someone, and then we got a chance. Sunday Night Football, Atlanta at Minnesota. Me and Sean have gone for Atlanta. Ronan went for Minnesota. Atlanta showed us something last week. They were very exciting. I think they were unfortunate not being able to get over the hump, and I think their defense showed that it was quite good against the run last week, and Minnesota seemed to be quite run heavy. But we'll see if maybe this week is a bit of a turnaround. We see a bit more Justin Jefferson, etc. Um, like this is a good game in that I think it's going to be quite close. I think both teams will be able to move the ball. I think it should make for a good bit of watching.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I thought the Falcons were better than I thought they would be. I think, especially on the offensive side, with what Penix is doing, and if Drake London, he's got an injury, so he might not play, but London and Bijan, even Kyle Pitts, I do think they're maybe clicking together on the offensive side better than I thought they would be. So that kind of gives me a little bit more faith in them as a team going forward. Now, they are still the Falcons, so they will still find ways to lose games they should have won, and certainly that can happen in a situation like this. Whereas the Vikings, I mean, yes, okay, you've got JJ McCarthy, having the best rookie fourth quarter comeback in history, blah 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 blah. But I don't know yet about them. There's still an awful lot of question marks about the Vikings as a team, and how they get into that kind of situation. And can you rely on a rookie like McCarthy to have that kind of game or that kind of fourth quarter every single time? So I think that in terms of consistency and what teams can offer on a week-to-week basis, I think the Falcons showed a little bit more substance in their paths to the game they should have won than the Vikings did in the game that they did win, if you get my meaning. So I think the Falcons are a little bit of a better place as a team, and that's why I think you got to give them the edge in this one.
Yeah, Monday Night Football, Tampa Bay at Houston. We've gone for Tampa Bay here. Neither knocked our socks off last week, but Houston, that line concerns me, and just on the basis of that alone, I wouldn't trust them to be able to consistently move the ball at the moment. Now, hopefully they'll be better, but Tampa Bay, while not impressive, they have the pieces to be able to work that. They have the offense to be able to go against it. It's a tough defense, so it'll probably be a low scoring game, but I think Tampa Bay should be able to edge this.
Yeah, I mean, two teams that don't seem to be as good as we thought they would be, and it might be time to start getting worried about CJ Stroud because there's a sophomore slump, and then there's just not playing well, and does kind of feel like it's been a while since he's had a good game. And the Bucks are a decent defensive team. I mean, Todd Bowles does kind of know what he's doing in that sense. And even if they didn't really show an awful lot against the Falcons to give you confidence for this year going ahead, they'd still have a bit of talent. And Baker he's a quality quarterback now. He's definitely established himself as such. And so I worry about where the Texans are because their performance against the Rams was just very poor and comes off the back of a season that kind of fell apart last year. And the optimism of year one Stroud has just completely evaporated for the Texans for me, and I have to see them produce it before I start to believe in them again. Whereas at least the Bucks, I think there's a level of the Bucks, and they will win games at that level, and I think that they're above the Texans in that sense.
Yeah, and finally, Chargers at Vegas. We've gone for Chargers across the board. We talked about their performance kind of in depth in the review section, but I think the Chargers are looking very strong this year. They've got a lot of weapons on the outside. Their defense is playing well, albeit not at an incredible level, and their quarterback is good, and they seem to have good game plans. The Raiders, look, they executed against New England, but they didn't blow anyone's socks off. We might see a more adventurous game plan out of them this time, which could be fun. Also, these are two coaches that obviously know each other from beforehand. In Harbaugh and Carroll, there's a bit of history between them, so I think it'll be good fun. I imagine this will be an exciting game to watch. I'm very intrigued to see what the Raiders can maybe do with Genty and stuff, because they didn't really get him going. Like they gave him the volume, but they didn't really get him free or crack him open for many big runs. But I think that the quality of the Chargers roster is probably going to win out in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Chargers showed that they're at a very high level this year, or at least they have the potential to be at a very high level this year. So I'd expect them to carry on that form. The Raiders look okay. I was kind of in two minds about where this Pete Carroll Raiders thing would go, and I think even offensively, I think Geno started off a lot better than I thought, and the defense, they do seem to have a bit of substance to them defensively, the Raiders, in a way that isn't just it's just Max Crosby. I mean, it is still largely just Max Crosby, but now it's Max Crosby plus a bunch of guys doing things. Jonty on the running game, we haven't seen an awful lot from yet, but I do think there's reasons to be optimistic if you are a Raiders fan, if any such fans do exist anymore. But I think the Chargers are just a better team.
There's a couple of big federal prisons in Las Vegas, right?
I don't know, actually. That is a good question. Presumably, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, they have everything in Vegas. But I think the Chargers they were really good week one, and if they can keep that up, they're going to be a really good team. Oh, you found them.
There is no federal prison in Nevada.
Really? You think they just stick something out in the desert?
Yeah. No, they used to have one. It closed in 2015. They have a lot of state prisons, but they don't have.
Right.
But they don't have any federal ones. Interesting.
The mystery of why the Raiders are in Vegas continues to, another layer.
Yeah. Who knows? Very good. Well, I think that'll wrap us up for this week. Any plans for the next few days, Sean?
Yeah, not much. I think my wife is taking has a personal date for a long weekend thing. So we're going this weekend. So we might do a lot of driving around the place. I am closing in less than 2 weeks to my driving test. So I'm getting praise from Sarah now for my driving rather than her gripping the handlebar in terror. So we're making progress.
That's good.
So yeah. So
very exciting.
That'll be my weekend, I think.
Lovely. We've got I'm getting out for a round of golf on Friday, and then we are dog sitting for my brother for the weekend as they're heading down to a wedding in Cork. So his little doggo will be staying with us. They get on very well, except his one does still occasionally decide it's time to piss on absolutely everything indoors because he wants to mark it and make it his. So we'll just have to keep an eye on that. My wife is running a half marathon, so that'll be fun. So she won't be able to move. Therefore, I will be on my brother's dog pee cleanup duty for the weekend. So that'll be good fun.
Sounds so much fun.
Yeah, and then we'll sit back and we'll watch loads of football. Very good. Well, that'll wrap us up for this week. So it's bye from myself. It's bye from Sean.
All right.
It's been all 4 quarters. Thanks for listening. We'll chat to you next week.